Yes. All right. So welcome. Today we want to look at one other critical part of project management. Today's topic is on project team building, conflict and negotiation. We want to explore the critical aspects of managing a project team. And this critical aspect is important because the success of a project doesn't only depend on the technical abilities of the project manager. It's equally crucial for us to see how the project members can work together. It's also important because we need to encourage the team to be high performing. And then there definitely would be conflicts when teams are working together. And then so we want to look at how we can handle conflicts effectively. So let's get started. When we talk about project team building, in fact, it is a foundation for success building, especially if we want to build a strong project team. It's very critical. So we need to be able to identify the skills and roles required for a project. And then based on that, it's not only the skills, we also need to foster a sense of cordiality between and trust between team members, because team bonding will promote easy workflow. Team bonding will ensure clear communication and a shared understanding of what the project team members want to do. So basically, that's what this course is about. This topic is about. So we'll look at some number of things. For instance, we'll look at understanding the steps involved in project team building. And then we know some characteristics of effective project teams and why sometimes teams may fail, why conflicts may arise, how do we manage virtual teams, and many others. Now, in today's lecture, our understanding would be based on quite some number of diagrams or figures. I'll start off by, first of all, using this. Can you see it clearly?
Prof. Yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay, so you look at this diagram, it's some kind of a flow diagram. At the highest level, the process starts with identifying required skills and qualifications for a project. The important question we always have to ask is, who do we need on the project team so that we can successfully execute the project? So this will involve carefully defining roles and responsibilities. From there, we have to look at how can we get those who have got the particular skills and qualifications we have identified, how can we get them on board? And this is where we move to the recruitment and selection stage. This is where we evaluate potential team members and assess them through various means. We assess their technical expertise and capacity, their interpersonal skills, and whether what they have done in time past can be aligned with the project goals. Somebody can be qualified, but the experience is not there. The person's what he has done in the past may not be, experience may not align. So once we have identified our core team, the next critical step is for us to go through what we call onboarding. So we bring them on board and then we integrate them. We want to make sure that everyone else would feel welcome. So usually when you are joining a team, they may have various ways by which they can welcome you through either orientation and other means so that you will be able to collaborate with the team effectively from the start. Now, these processes could involve maybe some team building exercises, maybe sitting you down and telling you that these are the communication channels, these are the communication protocols, and then making you understand that as a member of the project team, all of you have a shared goal. is very important. Then the diagram then highlights a key decision point, that do we believe we have assembled the right team? If no, we may need to go back and reevaluate our approach. Maybe we have to go and negotiate with stakeholders if they need be, to get the right resources in place, to get the right labor in place. Assuming we have got the team we need, the next thing we have to do would be to actively manage and develop the group, then develop the team. And this will involve like setting the clear expectations. What is everybody expected to do throughout the process? How do we ensure that there's feedback? How do we coach those who are not able to keep up to task? So coaching is also, and mentoring, very important, so that along the way we can address any emerging problems or challenges that would come. And then finally, this process we are looking at acknowledges that the team composition may need to evolve over time. So sometimes you may not start a project with a very strong team, but as the process evolves, the team members individually and collectively may transition in a way that will make the team more successful. It will make the team more flexible, and it can make the team more focused. Now, when we have followed this process to assemble a team for a project, it is not enough. We have to ensure that the team will continue to be what? To be effective. So you can go through a very proper way to assemble a project team, but you have not put in place mechanisms that will ensure that the effectiveness of the team is sustained over a period of time. So the next thing I want us to look at is effective project teams. Effective project teams. So let's look at the characteristics of effective project teams. How can we ensure that we have an effective project team? We have quite a number of factors there. There must be a clear sense of mission. It is important that we have a clear sense of mission, because the most successful team must have a very clear and a shared understanding of what they want to do, so that everyone is aligned on the overarching mission and the individual roles they will all have to play to achieve the broader mission. So a clear sense of mission is very important. Everybody must be clear in their mind. This is what we are working towards. Individually, this is what I'm supposed to do, and collectively, this is what we are all supposed to do, so that we'll be able to achieve the mission. Clear mission, very important. The next one is productive interdependency. Productive interdependency, we can look at it as a characteristics by looking at the fact that as members of the team, we should be able to rely on each other. So we have instead of saying productive interdependency, we can also say a healthy interdependency. We should be able to rely on each other. Members' reliance on each other's unique skills and each other's contribution it will foster collaboration between the team members. And then collectively, we will have a sense of what? Responsibility. If you are members of a team and you cannot depend on each other, it can bring a lot of problems. If you are members of a team, a project team, and you cannot depend on each other, it will lead to incohesiveness in the team. So that leads us to the next point: cohesiveness. Effective teams need to be able to develop a strong bond. They need to be able to develop a strong bond and a sense of cohesion. So there must be shared commitment to the team's success. There must be open communication and a willingness to do what? To support each other. This cannot happen if the members do not trust one another. There must be trust, because trust is the foundation of any great team. If a team needs to succeed, there must be trust. Members must feel that they can rely on each other. Members must know that though they are strong members of the team, they can be what? Vulnerable. And because they can be vulnerable, they must have confidence in one another's abilities and one another's intention. You cannot be part of a team when you suspect everybody on the team, or everybody suspects the other. Apart from that, enthusiasm is also very important. We have to be very passionate. The team must have an engaged team members who approach the project, what we want to work, what we want to deliver, with some level of energy and what? and positivity so that it can drive other team members. For example, if the project officer or the project manager who is leading the team is not enthusiastic, everybody will take a laid-back approach because the leader is so docile, is so lame. Then the last one, resource orientation. The most effective teams will keep a focus on achieving what? Their resource. Whatever is happening, focus must be there so that everybody will be working towards achieving that particular. So even if you have a clear sense of mission and you are not resource-oriented, what you will be doing will not lead to the achievement of the mission. Despite these particular characteristics of ensuring that teams are effective, some teams may fail despite all of this because teams may have poorly developed or unclear goals. We just previously looked at the things that we need to do, the characteristics. But if those characteristics are not done right, then the team would fail. So for instance, instead of having a clear mission, you have a poorly developed or unclear goals. And the project team members, their roles are not clearly defined. And the interdependencies are not healthy. The teams are not properly motivated. There's poor communication. The leadership is not resource-oriented. The leader is not enthusiastic. Poor leadership. When there is all of this, poor leadership, poor communication, team members will not feel belonging. And so they may want to look for alternatives to what? To leave the project team. And sometimes that can lead to what? Turnover among the project team members. And when we say turnover, we're basically looking at the rate at which members will leave the team. Frequent changes in the team composition. If we have frequent changes in the team composition, it can disrupt the rapport within the team. It can also lead to loss of knowledge, institutional knowledge, because someone may have been in the organization or on a particular project for a very long time and has developed some institutional knowledge. If there's turnover, if there's poor leadership and poor communication and the team member decides to leave, the team member will take away all the knowledge that he or she has gathered over the years. Then the last one that can make, the last reason that can make a team fail will be dysfunctional behavior. For instance, if team members engage in destructive behaviors, like if something happens, something wrong happens, and instead of taking responsibility, we shift the blame. So blame shifting is a very dysfunctional behavior. And sometimes to passive aggression. The person doesn't come across as being aggressive, but the way he throws the jabs, you will just know that this guy is not leading the team. Yes, someone just asked that, could that be the reason why Akufo-Addo refused to reshuffle his team? Yeah, some of these things. So you can see that leadership role that the president played in not wanting to reshuffle his team. You see, it basically killed some level of enthusiasm among team members. What Akufo-Addo did was a dysfunctional behavior. So someone does something wrong as a minister, as part of the project team, he will come out and say that the person didn't do anything wrong. And in the end, will even shortlist the person and finally award the person, give the person an award. When everybody knows that, clients, we the citizens know that, in fact, based on the metrics out there, the person really didn't deliver. Now, what processes can we go through to ensure that project team members are properly developed? Let's look at some stages we can go through in a group development. We are not saying the characteristics that can let members of a team fail. This one, we are looking at group development. We are looking at a framework that can help us understand natural progression, how teams can progress and get better and get mature. How can that happen? So we also indicated that, let me just go back a bit. We indicated that you have to, if you are going to form a team, assemble a team, you need to identify the skills, the roles and responsibilities and whatnot. And then you go through this to ensure that the teams are effective. But if you don't do that, the teams will fail. We're saying that you may have assembled, or you may assemble a team based on the requisite skills, requisite experience, ticking all the boxes. But that is not enough. In as much as the team members start work continuously, they need to be what? Developed. They need to be developed. So we are going to look at a well-established framework that can help us understand the natural progression teams go through as they come together, as they mature, as part of delivering the project mandate. Now, the first one I want us to look at is forming. When we say forming, what do we mean? At this particular stage, team members are just getting to know each other. We have assembled the team. They are just getting to know each other. And there's a sense of uncertainty because people are beginning to learn about their rules and what the project actually stand for. Then when we are at this particular stage, in fact, at this particular stage, we may not be able to identify inefficiencies in the system. But in some project teams, this particular forming stage, you may begin to even notice some red flags. Sometimes you may notice some red flags when you are putting the team together. Then we have storming. Storming, when the team is put together, inevitably, there will be disagreements. Disagreements may start. Conflicts may start to arise because this is the stage at which the team is beginning to find their footing. The storming stage is a very challenging period, but a necessary part of the process. Then we have norming. Norming, as the team works through the conflicts in the storming stage, they're beginning to reach agreements. And then establish that, okay, now that I know that this guy doesn't like this, or if I send reports in late, this guy will reject it or do this. At this stage, people in the team will begin to establish what? Agreements, norms of how they can deal with each other, of how they can resolve minor disagreements so that major disagreements and conflicts will not arise. So it is at the norming stage that some sense of cohesion starts to grow and build. Without the norming stage, without that sense of cohesion building and normalizing, the members will not be able to work together. So it is only after the norming stage that we can have the performing stage, which is the fourth one, performing. And this is the stage where members will do what? They are going to work together, the performing stage. Because once the team has navigated the earlier stages of forming, storming, and norming, they can really hit and work together effectively. So the performing stage is where the team is operating at a very high level. That's where they operate at a very high level. And then we come to the stage which we refer to as what? The adjourning stage. This is the stage where the project is coming to an end, or the project has come to an end, and the team will what? The team will disband. The team will adjourn. This period is a period of transition, which can be what? It can be bitter and sweet. It can be bittersweet. Because at this particular stage, the team disbands because they have achieved their goals. It is important to note that there's what we call a punctuated equilibrium model. I think we have it in the subsequent slides. A punctuated equilibrium model. We'll look at it very soon, which provides an alternative view that suggests that project development or group development, it is not always linear. It's not linear. At this particular stage, we are looking at a model where members they get to know each other, conflict starts to build up, they try to resolve the conflicts, they begin working together, and then through working together, they are able to what? Deliver the objective, deliver the results for the team. But we are saying that there's also another way that these stages can develop, and we call that the punctuated equilibrium model, which suggests that the punctuated equilibrium model suggests that team development is not always linear, because we can have periods of relative stability And then we can also have periods of turbulence and change. When we say development, project team development is linear, it means everything is just going to be the same. So you can have a project that starts with chaos throughout. Chaos. You can have one that starts with smoothness, cohesion from the beginning to the end. That's linear. But we can also have what we call the punctuated equilibrium. So there's confusion, there's disagreement, there's agreement, there are conflicts. And it is always through the resolution of the conflicts that the teams learn. And so through punctuated equilibrium, we would have ups and what? And downs. Okay. Then, okay, now let's look at the stages of development using a visual framework. This visual framework offers a helpful way of ensuring that project teams, of presenting how the process project teams go through. So let's look at each of the stages. Let's look at each of the stages. We have looked at it already, but I want to look at it in different light. So we looked at the forming stage, right? We looked at the forming stage, and we indicated that this initial stage is all about getting acquainted and establishing the foundations so that team members are introduced to each other, they begin to know their roles, and their roles are clearly defined. Here, there's a sense of uncertainty because they are just starting. So there's some level of inclusion there. You are bringing everybody together. It is often characterized by some level of what? Quietness, impersonal interactions, and people are getting to know each other. At this particular stage too, the morale is what? Is very high. Then the second stage is a storming stage. We looked at the issues of disagreements here. There's a little bit of conflicts and infighting over control, right? And then people are beginning to form maybe little groups within little camps within the team. And then little conflicts arise. Then we have the third one, which is the norming. The norming stage is where cooperation actually happens, where we establish proper procedures, develop team skills, and then confront the issues so that we were able to normalize the processes within the project team. And then we start to what? To perform. Once the team has navigated the earlier stage, easily they can hit the ground running. And so here we have the issues of trust, flexibility. Everybody is okay with what is going on. And then productivity can kick in. So at the norming stage, the environment is very organized. Then the environment is very organized. Then we also have the performing stage where actually much is what is done. Okay. So this image is actually a reflection of what we discussed. We were just discussing in terms of the group development stages. Let's look at another one. I mentioned in passing the model, the punctuated equilibrium model. This particular image is a representation of the punctuated equilibrium model. And it is an alternative view to explain the dynamics of team development over the life cycle of the project. And we're saying that this model is nonlinear. So rather than a linear progression through the typical stages of forming, storming, norming, and performing, this particular punctuated equilibrium model suggests a more disrupted patterns of team performance. And so for the punctuated equilibrium model, the key aspects are that first, we will have what we call first meeting when the project starts. This is the initial coming together of the team. So the other model, we're looking at what? Can someone remember at the other model, what's the first stage? The first thing? Forming, yes. But in the punctuated equilibrium model, we have the first meeting. This is the initial coming together of the team, where at this particular stage, we see that performance is very low here. performance is very low. So if you look at the graph or the diagram, you see on the axis here, we have team performance. On the other axis, the x-axis, we have what? The project timeline. So here at the first meeting, the initial, that's where everybody is coming together. And the performance is what? It's low. Then we have a period of erosion. So the period of erosion, you see that performance is not standard, but performance rises. So, but at this particular stage, at the erosion stage, we are saying that when everything is normal at the first meeting, over time, conflicts and challenges will come and it will dip the team's performance. So at the erosion stage, you see that performance is kind of, in terms of the timeline, there's some stagnation there. There's some stagnation there. So at the erosion stage, there's a dip in team performance. There's a dip in team performance because the storming phase kicks in there. And when we say storming stage, there are conflicts there. During storming, there are always conflicts. Then we have what we call the midpoint here. At the midpoint, there's often a re-evaluation and potential restructuring of the team. Here, it leads to a temporary slump in the project performance. There's a temporary slump in the project performance. Then there's the last stage, which is the completion stage. So towards the end of the project, the team will now start to rally together and performance will start rising and rising as they all realize that they are getting to the end of the project and they need to work together despite the storming they are going through. So you see that everything is not linear. There will be problems. Sometimes there will be stagnation. People may even abandon their responsibilities and there will be stagnation. And then all of a sudden, everybody realizes that if we do not perform, we will not get compensated. If we do not perform, we will not be able to deliver. We will not get promoted. Then they start to come together to put in their best. If we are able to understand this model, it can help us as project managers to anticipate, to expect, and prepare for natural occurrences that can affect the team dynamics. So it is important that we know that we can have linear development of a team hardly happens. It hardly happens. Okay. All right. I think I've lost my feed. Pause. Okay. Now, despite all the models we are looking at, it is important that we ensure that we have cross-functional cooperation. When we say cross-functional cooperation, it is critical because teams need to work together. We can have intra-team cooperation and we can have inter-team cooperation. When I say intra-team cooperation, it means people within the team need to be able to what? Work together. But we can also have intra-team cooperation where members of a particular project team need to work with members of a different team. So achieving cross-functional cooperation within teams is very, very important. And for us to be able to ensure that we have effective cross-functional cooperation, we need to be able to build a high-performing team. Teams that are not high-performing, that are not very efficient, it will be difficult for them to ensure that whilst they are maintaining internal team cooperation, they can also ensure that external team cooperation, that is cooperation between the members of a particular team and members of other teams, are effective. It's very important. All of this is about what? Multitasking. There are some team members who cannot multitask. They are part of the team, they do that alone. The moment they are going to engage with other team members of different teams of different projects to deliver on their project, it becomes a problem a problem for them. All right. Now, what can we do to build high-performing teams? The strategies we can follow to build high-performing teams. Let's go through it one after the other. It is indicated that the first one, make the project team tangible. How can we make the project team tangible? By raising the visibility and the profile of the team. The moment we project the team out there, the team members will have a high sense of identity and purpose. They will feel a sense of pride that they belong to this particular team. So they will, because that publicity is out there, the team members will feel that, look, we are known for ABC, so we must work to sustain or maintain that credibility that has been that our project team is tagged with. So even within the team, the project team members should be taught to use some manner of terms, consistency in the way they communicate. They must use some intentional language to describe the team and what they are doing, so that one too can solidify the team. So terminology and the language of the team. Politically, let's just look at an example. How members of the XY MPP government were communicating, their terminology and language. The citizenry gave them the mandate, but they were lording over us, using language of arrogance over the citizens. You see that the current government is trying to change that, the way they communicate, because the public perception about that particular team, the new team, is so high. And because of that, raising the visibility and profile of the new team, they also need to be able to communicate in a way that the team members, the public would realize that, okay, this particular team, the way they communicate, the language the team members are using actually reflect the nature of the public statements that are made about that particular team. Now, to ensure that we have high-performing teams, we cannot take away the issue of compensation. We should be ready to reward good behavior. We should be able to reward good behavior. We should encourage adaptability and openness. Those members of the team, we should encourage them to be open to change, so that the team will be able to navigate challenges more effectively. Then creativity, we also have to ensure that we foster an environment that values innovation and innovativeness, innovative thinking, so that it can lead to a better problem solving. Then still under rewarding good behavior, pragmatism. We should be able to balance vision of members of the team with practical execution. We don't want team members who talk too much, but practically they cannot do anything. So it's very important. Practicality, pragmatism is what? Is very important and crucial. Then we also have to develop a personal notch. Develop personal notch by leading by example, sense of enthusiasm, leadership by example. Leadership by example, very important. We should also be able to accept positive feedback. If we are able to accept positive feedback, members of the team can voice out what is not going well, so that we can adjust. This can be encouraged, especially during the storming stage, so that when people have any disagreement, they can say it. The project manager should be accessible, and the project manager should be consistent. If we see anything wrong, we should be able to approach the project manager and voice out our concerns. The way the project manager will lead the team to deal with that particular issue, it should not be different when another person reports similar instance. So consistency in terms of the team is very, very important. If we are able to do this, we'll be able to build a high-performing team, make the project tangible, reward good behavior, and develop what? A personal notch in terms of leading by example, accepting positive feedback for good performance, constructive feedback, we call it, and then making ourselves accessible and being consistent with how we deal with things. Okay. Now, teams will not always work in physical environments, especially these days when we are encouraging the use of virtual platforms to link members of teams who are dispersed far away in geographically distant locations. We call them virtual project teams. So you can constitute a team, and the team can have members who are scattered all over the world. When we have a virtual team, how can we ensure that the virtual team is developed and improved? We can use face-to-face communication whenever possible. We can meet. If we cannot, then we rely on virtual. We also don't, when we have virtual teams, it is often the case that the virtual team members can easily disappear, especially if you are dealing with virtual team members in a developing country context. They will use the network challenges as an example, not to perform. Yes, they will use it as an example, not to perform. So to ensure that we have an effective virtual team, infrastructure is very important. Infrastructure is very important. For instance, network connectivity, reliable internet access. Virtual team members must also have a very effective code of conduct. And though the team is dispersed in various locations, every member of the team must always be kept in the communication loop. We cannot use distance as a yardstick to say that because you are far away, we were not able to notify you. In as much as the teams are virtual, communication should be effective in a virtual way. Also, the last one is also that considering the fact that the teams are in geographically dispersed locations, we have to be able to create a process for addressing conflicts. Even when we are not together, conflicts are bound to happen. And as much as we are working together, there will always be conflicts. Virtual teams must also create a clear and laid down process of what? Addressing conflicts. The conflicts will occur, whether we're dealing with physical teams or we're dealing with what? Virtual project teams. When the conflicts happen, how do we manage the conflicts? How do we manage the conflicts? Now, to be able to manage the conflicts, there are several ways we can do that. But first of all, let's try to understand when we say conflict. What is that? Conflict management. What does it mean? We have discussed earlier as part of the storming stage, that conflict is an inevitable part of the project team. But how do we navigate conflicts when they occur? We have to be able to establish a common understanding of what we mean by a conflict. So conflict is a process that begins when you perceive that someone has frustrated or is about to frustrate a major concern of yours. So you see that in a very subtle way, the way conflict is defined here, many of us may be thinking conflicts may just be shouting at each other and holding each other's neck. No. When we begin to realize that someone is frustrating what we are doing as part of the project team, or the person is about to frustrate a major concern, then conflict is likely happening. So to be able to manage conflicts very well, we have to be able to establish a common understanding of what we mean in the organization. That is very important. Everybody must know what conflict is in the organization. The conflicts can come in different ways. It can come in different ways. We can have conflicts occurring in an organization because of the goal-oriented conflicts. So there can be disagreement over the project objectives. From the onset, someone will say, no, this is not what we're actually supposed to be doing. Disagreement over the project objectives. People can also disagree over the priorities of the project or the desired outcome. There can be disputes sometimes too, apart from the goal. There can be disputes about the policies, the administrative policies. People can disagree. People can disagree in terms of procedure. Procedure in terms of what? Resource allocation. People can even clash, interpersonal clashes from personality differences. conflicts can arise in all these particular categories. Okay. Can someone give us an example of how conflicts can or has occurred in their organization using any of these examples, a practical example? Hello?
Habib,
Hello, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, so this session, we can see it in all aspects of organizations. Let's use UDS as an example.
Okay.
I happen to witness a little, let's say, project or transforming, a migration conflict that occurred. Sorry
Okay.
to say. I realized that when you people were being told of your migration to controller, I
Okay.
realized that there were a lot of that conflict. Some happen to be in support of it, others not. So that's the clear example I can give with regards
Yes.
to this. Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
So based on the last slide, I indicated that conflicts can come from different sources, and we're looking at goal-oriented, administrative, and whatnot. This is just an extension of it. The conflicts can come maybe from the way payment, such as the way we are compensated. It can come, so that's a perfect example of what you just gave, the reward systems. Then we can also have a situation where the project is so stretched, there are scarce resources. So resource allocation problem within the project can lead to conflicts. Usually when we are dealing with projects, there are always issues of contingency. We don't know what may happen. So there may be unexpected things that can happen that can lead to conflicts. Maybe the death of a key project member, the transfer of a key project member, or the resignation, turnover can affect it. Uncertainties can affect it. Apart from that, differences in the way we perceive things can also. Then we have the interpersonal aspect, faulty attributions. There's always someone in the team, when something happens, he would always, he will not take his time to listen very well. He will not take the time to have a constructive dialogue. It's all over the place and attributing unnecessary things to what is happening. Apart from that, people can come to a project team with personal grudges, far away, chieftaincy, tribal. Maybe they used to be going out with the same person. Then they transfer some of these things. So personal grudges and personal prejudices can all be a source of conflict. When there are conflicts, either from any of these sources, the project should be able to find a way to resolve the conflict through process of what? Mediation. And through mediation, we mean finding a way to diffuse the issue, facilitate a constructive dialogue between the aggrieved parties. Then we can also have issues of arbitration. Maybe we can say that we can look for a third party who we can bring in to evaluate the situation in an objective manner so that he can find a binding decision for the two parties. In that way, the problem will have been resolved through what? Arbitration. We can also have we can also deal with the conflict through control, using what we call the cool down period. So we'll provide a time and tell everybody, no one should talk about it. The project manager can just stamp his or her authority and say that in the next 1 week, I don't want anybody to discuss this issue until so and so period. So during this particular period, which we call the cool down period, emotions will do what? Will calm down. Emotions will settle. And members will begin to reapproach the issue with a calmer attitude. They will have a more rational mindset about the issue. Then we also have accept. We use this one when we say is unmanageable. Sometimes conflicts may be so irreconcilable. Looking at the nature of the conflict, the best course of action is to acknowledge and plead with aggrieved members to just try and understand. When we have a conflict and they tell you understand, it means the issue is unmanageable. They are just telling us to accept it and let's move on. And then the last one, we have eliminate. So we can have extreme cases where it may be necessary to remove individuals from a team to be able to resolve a conflict. So we'll just transfer the person. All of these are approaches that we can use to do what? To resolve a conflict. But look at this statement, that conflict is often evidence of progress. I don't know to what extent you will agree to it. But if you look at the development processes we have looked at, forming, storming, performing, and disbanding, all of these processes, you see that conflict arises at a particular stage. Conflict arises at a particular stage. You start, and then later conflicts. So when conflicts happen, it can be an evidence that there's going to be progress, because the moment the conflicts are resolved and everybody has understood the situation, there would likely going to be progress. This can be subjective to some extent, because some conflicts can lead to the complete shutdown of what projects and may not be evidence of a project progress. Okay, then we can also use a process of negotiation. We can use negotiation. Negotiation is a very critical skill that project managers, they need to master, because it is the basis. It is the basis of project managers' ability to navigate very complex situations in the organization or within the project. The project manager should have some critical negotiation skills. The project manager should have critical negotiation skills. The project manager has a lot of power. So whatever is happening within a project, either team members or the project manager, if the project manager is going to negotiate between team members, even the team members must start asking themselves, this negotiation I'm going into, how much power do I have? How much power do I have? If you don't have a lot of power, then the stakes may not be in your favor. You may also have to consider time constraints. What sort of time constraints are on you as you enter into the negotiation? If you have the luxury of time, you can drag the negotiation because you have the luxury of time. If you don't have the luxury of time, and you may have the luxury of time, but you don't have the power. So your major stake will be the time. Someone too may have the power, but not the time. One critical thing when we are dealing with negotiation is that the issue of trust always comes up, because as part of negotiation, an agreement may be struck, but for lack of trust from the opponent, they may not hold their side of the bargain. So the level of trust or the lack of trust in the other party, that can impact the dynamics and tactics you employ when you are going into a negotiation. Then the last but not the least, when we are negotiating, we have to separate the people we are negotiating with from the problem. The problem we are dealing with is different from the people. So sometimes this is where people have issues with lawyers. Because a lawyer is defending somebody, it doesn't mean that the lawyer actually believes in what the person is doing or what the person has done. So a lawyer can be defending somebody who has committed murder, and all evidence points to the fact that this person has actually done it. But the lawyer is defending the person. So we should be able to separate people from the problem. We should be able to focus on our interest and not the positions. What is our interest in this particular issue? And as we go through the negotiation process, we always have to think about our options for our own gain, as well as the gain of the other parties, because you want the other party to accept what you are negotiating on. When we are in negotiation processes, we always have to insist on using a criteria or a metrics that is what? Objective, a metrics that is what? Acceptable to both parties. So as part of project management, our focus is that in putting a project team together, they'll go through a number of phases. And these phases will lead to conflicts. And when the conflicts arise, the conflicts needs to be what? Need to be solved. Otherwise, the project will not be delivered. Okay. Now, let's open up for discussion.